You are listening to the It's Your Time podcast, and I'm your host, Certified Life Coach Michelle Arnold Burke. In today's episode, I'm discussing permission to be yourself, living a vibrant life with Kelly Tibbetts. Welcome to the It's Your Time podcast, the podcast where busy professionals like you get the practical solutions and support you need to gain control of your schedule so you can strive to be the best in your career, but without the stress and overwhelm. If you're looking to increase your energy and decrease your stress, you are in the right place. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast, friends. Okay, today I have a treat for you because I am sharing a recent conversation with Kelly Tibbetts. Kelly is a life coach and a guide whose mission is to help women live a vibrant life. How much fun does that sound? We could all use more of that, right? Kelly empowers women to lean into self-awareness, step into their power, and claim permission to be exactly who they are, living their most vibrant life. And in this interview, we talked about owning your boundaries, people-pleasing, and frameworks like the Enneagram and Human Design as tools to support your growth. I really love this conversation because it truly hits to the core of what I enjoy helping women with, stepping into your wealth, stepping into your wellness, and dare I say, stepping more into your wild success based on this season of life. I always have so much fun having these conversations, and I hope you enjoy them as well. So without further ado, please take a listen. Okay, this is going to be so much fun. Can you start by introducing yourself in a way that you most enjoy?
Oh, sure. Well, thank you. I'm Kelly Tibbetts. I'm a life coach from New Hampshire. I've been married for 30 years, a mom of 3 amazing adult daughters. They've all flown the nest and they live now in California, Colorado, and New York City. So I have really fun places to travel and visit them. I became a life coach after I got my own life coach back in 2016. And she helped me discover through the lens of the Enneagram why I think and feel and do life the way I do. And it transformed my leadership and it made me really passionate about helping other people discover that as well. I think a lot of us live lives where we listen to everybody around us tell us how to live our life. And for us to grow in self-awareness, I think the most important thing it does is it helps us to have our own back and be able to say, no, thank you. This is how I'd like to do. I'd say the yeses and nos that are really important. And so my goal is to help connect with moms, especially empty nest moms who are trying to discover the next season of their life and help them make the choices where when they invest their energy, they're able to live a vibrant life, not exhausted, overwhelmed, and depleted. So that's what I do and how I do it.
I love that. Vibrant life, because you talk about that a lot. Can you maybe even just start by talking about what that means to you when you
Yeah.
life?
So before I was a life coach, I was first a teacher and then I became a pastor. I started out by doing the children's ministry because my husband traveled a lot and it was hard for me to do stuff during the week, but it was a way for me to keep my toe in the workforce while my girls were growing up. And eventually I became the leader of my organization. And what I discovered along the way, between the nonprofit work I did and the work that I did for very little pay in the nonprofit world, so I did a lot of volunteering, a lot of work. A lot of women were being paid in praise, including myself. We would do things that were way past what was agreed upon in our job description, or we would constantly be overgiving. And instead of living in an abundant, vibrant life, we were living depleted lives. So I don't think vibrant life means unicorns and rainbows and happy all the time. It's expected that life has all of the feelings and sometimes you're overwhelmed and sometimes you're sad, but it shouldn't be the constant part of your life. So I think it's supposed to have all of the different expressions. You're supposed to enjoy your one and only precious life. You're the main character. You're the person who gets to decide to do more of what brings you energy in life and be able to say with confidence, no, thank you to that opportunity. And so my goal in helping women discover vibrant life really begins with them believing, no matter what age they are, that they're made on purpose for a purpose. There's something they're here to do. And if they get to do whatever that is, for some women, it's baking and giving it away. For other women, it's leading an organization with $1 million budget. Whatever it is that you were meant to do, when you get to do it, it brings energy and joy and passion and enthusiasm into your life. And that's what I think we are all really created to live.
Yeah, I love this. I'd like to kind of double click on it too, because I feel like, and I've said this multiple times, for me, when I had one of my early coaches, she said, well, Michelle, what do you want to do? And I thought that was the toughest freaking question. I was like,
Absolutely.
what? Because, and exactly what you're talking about. We get paid in praise. We're going to do, and go, go, go. but to actually stop and think about what is it that brings you energy? What is it that I do want? I think that for sure is the work.
It is the work. And I do love having these 3 adult daughters who are in their late 20s. I think the women coming after us are getting better at that. They're getting better at deciding that they are not going to give away all their energy in unpaid emotional labor. They're going to, be more passionate about what brings them life and joy, whether it's friendship or travel. So I do love seeing that continue to grow, but I think it is really important for women of all ages to realize our existence is not for the other people in our lives. We weren't just put here to be codependent people pleasers. We are here because our life matters as well. And what we do, whether it's writing a book, whether it is having a Substack, whether it is creating a community of people that you get to pour into, all of those things are important. And it's better for the world when we are enthusiastic and excited and not constantly resentful.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the more conversations like this, the more we're able to show people that are younger, like, it is okay. This is the direction we want, the ripple effect. And I think even for folks like my age, I'm assuming similar age, like, to take a moment and be like, it's also not too late. Like, you can make the shift
Mhm.
now if you want to
Yeah.
make those changes and think about what that vibrant life is for you in this next chapter, whatever that is.
Oh, 100%. I love looking at women like Jane Fonda, Jane Goodall, who just passed this week, 91, out there still traveling, promoting what was important to her. Yeah, I think there's could be more seasons of my life, right? There was the time when I was a student, then I was a teacher, then I was a mom of young children. And I think there's many things that lie ahead. And it's not too late for me to invest my best energy in what makes me excited and what brings me purpose.
Yeah, I think for myself, and I've talked to a few other people, like, I almost feel like I'm at my best physically now, right?
Yeah,
Because I think you take the time to care about yourself
right.
and you actually think about, like, what is it that I'm doing in order to work out, eat better? What am I putting in my body? Like, all of that stuff matters.
Oh, all of it matters. Absolutely. Yes. I think a vibrant life involves all of that mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, all of the different areas of your life, your friendships, and the areas in your life you want to give good energy to. Finding that sometimes life can feel overwhelming. There's so many different areas we can put our attention to, but deciding, hey, what's one small community that I want to put some time and energy into? I think, yeah, as we get a little bit older, we're a little better at discerning. I do want to do more of this, and I don't think I want to do that right now.
Yes. And now you mentioned Enneagram. So I'd love to even dig into that a little bit. I know you're into the human design, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, life coach school is part of your process as well.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
think there's like so many different angles that you can take as far as coaching. Maybe we just start with Enneagram and
Yeah.
and what like foundational levels of that.
Right. So the Enneagram for me was my first step into self awareness. My first coach helped me, and it took about 6 months for me to discover my path. So there are 9 paths, 9 ways of thinking, feeling, and doing life. But each of those paths has 3 subcategories. So every one of those 9 numbers, it's like if you took the color red, one might be a little pink and one might be more mauve. So there's nuance to all of these 9 paths. But at a basic level, that's a really good place to start. 9 different ways of thinking, feeling, and doing life. And when I discovered my path, it helped explain a lot of why I had done life the way I did. And then my 3 daughters were home, my husband discovering his path. There were 5 different ways of thinking, feeling, and doing life just in my little family. And it gave us language for each other and it gave us grace. And in addition to just giving you the clarity of you, or, do you primarily think or feel or do, it also gives you understanding of what happens in stress. So that's one of my favorite ways to talk about the Enneagram. Um, there are tests out there and they are about 70 to 80% accurate. The problem is if you land on the wrong number, you're doing the wrong work. And so it doesn't serve you to just take a quick test and now I'm a 4 and then do the work of a 4. It really might take you some time. And for me, working one on one with a coach is how I found my path. So again, 9 ways of thinking, feeling, and doing life. And each of those 9 ways gives you a little bit of understanding about yourself. And we can go into that in a moment. What Enneagram number are you? Do you know?
So I was just thinking when you're talking about needing more time, I've taken the test I think multiple times, and I always forget what my number is. I am into the human design part of it, which I know you love also. Like that, I felt like was a permission slip for me to be me. And would you say that's similar in the Enneagram? And then I guess the other part is how are they different from like DISC or Strength Finders, like different personality tests along those lines? Would you say?
Yeah, well, each personality test is going to give you a little bit of different information about yourself. The reason I'm passionate about human design is if you are at the very beginning of growing in self-awareness and you actually know where you were born and the time of day you were born, you can find your human design. Now, if you don't know that information, you can still find it by working with a human design coach. It's just going to take a little bit more work. But for people who have that information, it's a really great first step into discovering themselves, because human design gives you all kinds of information about yourself as well. I think each of those pieces help you understand why we are all these like unique puzzles with these different pieces, and some of them overlap and some of them, are very, very different. And I think just growing a little bit in self-awareness, one of the most important things it does is it gives you some grace and love for yourself, because you're no longer listening to the voices outside of yourself. You start to grow in that like self-confidence. I understand this bit about myself. That's a really good thing. And then it also gives you the nuance of noticing these people that I do life with, whether it's at home or at work or extended family, they seem to be doing it differently. And then I'm not expecting everybody to be the same as me. So I'm an Enneagram 2. I'm heart-centered. I'm in present-focused energy, and I'm feeling my way through life. And because I can notice other people's feelings, I would even say I feel other people's feelings, very empathetic, which leads to like a codependent, people-pleasing energy. I assumed other people were just ignoring that information. If I could tell when you walk in a room that you're overwhelmed and sad, even though you haven't said anything, why can't you tell when I am? And that's because they can't. They're not feelers. They're not processing life that way. So I think
I am
there's
not a 2, that is for sure. I am not a feeler.
yeah. And that's so good to know. Like a generator in general is going to come with, because you have a sacral, right? That part of you that's the connected part for a generator, and you're created to respond. You and I met through Kathy Heller, who is a manifester. And a lot of people that create something from nothing are manifestors. That's the energy they bring to the world. So we could watch somebody like her and be really frustrated that we're not able to do that. Because you and I'm a manifesting generator, you're a generator. We're supposed to respond to something. And so that's a very different way of doing life. And so we could have all kinds of thoughts about how we're doing it wrong because we're not doing it like her. Or we could say, wow, the cool thing about being a generator is once something's begun and you're responding to it, you have the energy to do long periods of work. My husband's a generator. He has done the same work for 30 years. I'm a manifesting generator. I would rather have 2 or 3 part-time jobs than one job for 30 years. Like, we're just different, but it's not right or wrong. It's just different. So I think there's a ton of overlap. It's very nuanced, but we are so lucky. Today, Instagram is full of people who are really highly trained in this and share great information. Substack is one of my favorite places to learn about human design. I think there's a lot of overlap. Pick one area and begin to work that way. With human design in particular, I think it's kind of hard to do without a community around you. I actually created a Facebook group with some of my friends from the Kathy Heller program who also love talking about human design. And sometimes it's just connecting with different people and hearing how they talk about it helps you to notice, okay, that is me or that is not me. And that's maybe one of the best ways I help people grow in self-awareness is just realize that is not me. That's a really good thing to learn. It's not always the nuance of it's this or that. It's like, no, it's definitely not that. And that's a really important thing for us to be able to do. So you're like, no, not a 2, not heart-centered, not present-focused. Generator energy, you might be a 1-to-1 intensity, one of the colors of the 9 different paths. You might be a 3-7-8, which is a future-focused energy. And but you really have to do the work yourself. It's so hard. We all want the quick quiz, but because it's possibly going to send you down the wrong path, it's not always the right way to start.
Yeah, I think a few things that you've said, it's so important because I know even with clients I've worked with, same thing. They've used it on their children, especially like teen girls and moms, and they've said it's changed the way they parent. And
Oh,
like that gives me
absolutely.
chills to think like, right? How does that make such a difference? It's amazing. And when you say like that's not me, I think it also allows us the grace, like you mentioned, to also give ourselves. So like we don't have to be like that person. And it's okay. Like I can do life my way. And they get to do it their way. Like it just allows so much more freedom, I think, in the whole relationship.
And if we are the one that starts that way, we have our own back. We have confidence in why we're making the decisions we're asking. I always refer to it like so many of us are walking around with empty teacups, looking for exhausted, overwhelmed people to fill us up, and they have nothing to give. So a mom and a teenage daughter, I have three adult daughters now, but I had three teenagers when I began doing the Enneagram work. I'm a two. I'm other people focused, processing in my heart. Two of my children have more assertive energy than I have, and one is more similar to me, but they all have different whys. I'm trying to be helpful. My youngest is trying to be productive and successful. My middle daughter is an Enneagram 7, and she is trying to see what the most amazing possibilities are. She doesn't want to be limited. And my oldest daughter is an Enneagram 8, and she's trying to fight for justice. And in her gut, she knows like what to do and what not to do. And I would have loved to just bubble wrap them and make them into three small versions of me. And that would have been the absolute worst thing for all three of them. They were all created to be very, very different than me. And so having that language made it so much more productive for us as they were becoming themselves. Because that's what's really happening in those teenage years. Hopefully, we're offering them a safe space to become fully themselves and not have to become miniature versions of us.
Yeah, and I think that even flows into like work because I know for me, I often think I know the best way. And my boss informed me that not everyone has to be like me to be successful, which I was shocked. But right, if we know this kind of stuff, I just think of how frustrated in younger years I might have been about, and I think this goes for a lot of people. Maybe it's at home, maybe it's with work people, but when you can just take the time to gain a little bit of this knowledge, it can open up so many possibilities for you. And I think back to like life coach school where we talk about like other people don't make you feel a certain way. Like that seems so basic, but it's so true. And this is just
Goodness.
like another layer.
But I did not know that. So life coach school, I got my first life coach in 2016 and just happened to find Brooke Castillo's podcast at the same time. And I'm driving home. And the first thing I hear her say is if your husband left his clothes on the floor, it doesn't mean he doesn't love you. And that thought had been running around without me paying attention forever. Obviously, the only reason the clothes are on the floor is because he doesn't love me. But to realize the power was in my thought. My thought could be neutral. There's clothes on the floor and not add anything to it. Now, what's interesting about the life coach school and the Enneagram, the life coach school reminds us that thoughts are creating feelings and feelings are driving us towards or away from actions that create results in our life. Those are the three centers of intelligence the Enneagram gives us information on. Fives, sixes, and sevens think. Eights, nines, and ones do. They somatically process life. And twos, threes, and fours are feeling their feelings. So we would get homework from life coach school to do a model. But the model always began with the thoughts, and that's my third center of intelligence. Really hard for me to notice my thoughts. I know what I'm feeling, and I know what I want to do or not do as long as I'm in healthy energy. But what thought created it took a lot of work. So I think the life coach school with the Enneagram is very transformative because not everybody starts in the thinking center.
Oh, that is so good. I remember when I started and I was talking to a girlfriend over wine and she was like, wait, your thoughts create your results? What is that? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm going to go learn. It's
And,
like,
but it was true, right? You began to notice, wow, if I keep thinking this thought, I'm going to feel so frustrated all the time and exhausted. I won't do the thing I want to do.
well, and especially when you talk about how you being a two and heart centered and caring and wanting to help, when you see laundry on the floor, then that goes against everything that you would be wanting as your core. So that
Right. And
makes
he's
sense.
not a two. He's a six. So he's just trying to stay safe. He's in his thinking center. So my favorite story about us, we get along really well. We've been married 30 years. We have a lot in common. We have the same instinct, which makes marriage and relationships easier. But we're going for a walk and we live in a quiet neighborhood. And so cars don't come by often. And so when a car comes by, I feel something, then I do something, and then I think. He thinks, then does, and then notices what his feeling was in between. So I feel afraid and I move the wrong way in his brain, right? Like if a car is coming, you move right over to the sidewalk and I'm like running across the street the other direction. And I think that's the best example of the two of us being really intelligent people who get along, but just really doing life so differently and not trying to make us become like the other one. He gets to keep his way of thinking, feeling, and doing, and I do as well. But it is helpful for him to notice, boy, you didn't even think what would be the right way to go. You just felt scared and did something. And so putting those two things together, I think is really helpful. I love the life coach school. I love the Enneagram. I love human design. I love all of the tools that are available to us to become healthy versions of ourselves. And at the same time, not make it mean something. My identity is not an Enneagram 2. My identity is that I'm just like every other person on this earth, 100% valuable. I love that Brooke says that all the time. You're just 100% valuable. That's who you are. It's not going to change based on the decisions you make. So when you start from that place, I think you end up giving grace and love into the universe instead of judgment.
Oh, 100%. And I think that judgment is for others and for ourselves. And I always say, especially, we work in sales, and I think a lot of the hustle is like I'm trying to get from, below ground up to worthy. And I think that I need to keep going and going and doing. Where if we just start at worthy, you're already worthy. Then, like, what
Right.
is available when you start to go above that? And you've talked a couple times about saying no with kindness, right? And figuring out what your yeses are. I think that's sometimes challenging for folks. And I think a lot of it comes down to, like, you talked about people pleasing, setting boundaries. Can you maybe
Mm.
talk a little bit about setting boundaries, what that looks like? Because I think sometimes people think there's a right way and a wrong way and it's bad and we're not being nice. And so can you talk a little bit about how you work with clients around boundaries?
Well, even one of my favorite things right now is I grew up in a very dysfunctional family where I was a parentified child. So instead of being my sibling, I was like their second mother. And I discovered boundaries as one of my very first life-changing things. Dr. Henry Cloud and Townsend's book in 2003 opened my eyes to the fact that I had no boundaries. I just let everybody else decide what I was going to think and feel and do all the time. And now I have really clear boundaries. I don't do triangulated conversations where my mom calls me to tell my sister something like, I only talk to you about me and you. We don't talk about other people. But as I put those boundaries in place, my family of origin really struggled with me because they really preferred the other version. So I think that's the first thing to know with boundaries as you begin to grow in them. Don't expect the people around you who preferred that you didn't have them to suddenly celebrate it. So whether it's a job where you were getting paid in praise and now you're saying, you know what, these are my contracted hours. I'm going to just honor those. I'm not going to give you another 10 hours a week. I'm not going to spend, as a teacher, I'm spending a great portion of my salary buying things for my classroom, working way past my contracted hours just to be a people pleaser. A boundary says, this is where I end, right? This is where my energy ends. This is where my limits are. And I'm going to say yeses and nos from a place of love for myself. I think where people get boundaries wrong is when they ever say you. You need to not call me after 11 o'clock. You need to not ask me to keep doing this. Boundaries are never for them, they're for us. So it's our decision. What do I want to think? How do I want to feel? What do I want to do or not do? And as you're creating them, to notice that some of the people that you need to put a boundary with may really push hard and never get to the place where they can just say, wow, good for you. And so this is what the life coach school taught me, that every thought in my brain was created by me. There are circumstances happening. My mother says something. A person invites me and then changes their mind. Those circumstances are 100% neutral until I have a thought about it. And so because I learned that, my oldest daughter got married a year and a half ago. And because of the circumstances in their life, she and her husband had about 30 minutes to have this wedding before he flew back to where he needed to be. And so I wasn't there. And do you know what my thought was? How beautiful they had this intimate time together. And I only enjoyed it for her. I didn't have any resentment or frustration. Many people around me had different thoughts, right? They wanted to be there and all of these things. So a boundary 100% of the time is your decision about what you will say yes and no to, where your limits are, what you want more or less of, and then the people around you get to have the thoughts they have. The struggle for many of us is we think we're changing their thoughts. We're changing their feelings. We're changing their behavior. We're not. They changed it. It just looked like it was because of something that we may have said or done. So if anyone's feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, frustrated, resentful, maybe boundaries is a good first step. I don't have the energy for that. And if I could just share one more little metaphor, one thing I say in my coaching program all the time, start to think of your energy like money. And Taylor Swift said this when she was on the New Heights podcast, like think of your energy as really expensive. And some of the relationships we're in require $1 million of energy. And your bank account has $100. It's not even going to put a dent in that person's need for you to give your last $100 there. And so when you start to notice energy is not unlimited, you can do more things that fill you and less things that drain you once you're aware of it. But there are some relationships that require significantly more energy than you have, and it's okay to put yourself first. I tell my girls this sentence all the time that I learned from TikTok. I love you, but I love myself more. And that sounds like, man, what kind of mother says that? I think a mother who loves herself first is actually better at loving her children. But boy, that was a hard thought to come to because my whole society had said mothers have to always give of themselves first, and be exhausted and never, ever let yourself even know what flavor ice cream you wanted because it's always about everybody else in your life. If we can love ourselves first, I think that's how we actually love others.
Yeah, and I think that also teaches them the lesson that it's okay to love themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a bigger lesson that's there. I think so much of what you said is so important. And the whole boundaries conversation, I feel like when people can approach it from that angle, knowing you stand in your power, it is not about forcing others to change. It is
Yeah.
that you are just going to accept this like this. And it doesn't have to be a huge conversation and a big dramatic thing. It can just be something you're deciding in your mind and you stick to it.
I love that. I think no is the answer, right? So your school calls for the fifth time because you're the mom that they can always rely on, and you just say, no, thank you. We really need you to do this. No, thank you. You don't even have to explain. I don't have the energy and I am already busy on Tuesday. Just no, thank you for the invitation. So lovely to be thought of, but no, thank you. And it does not have to be the kind of thing where we put a lot of time and energy into the explanation if we know, especially, that that's not going to work. When somebody comes to you and you've been in a relationship with them for decades and they've learned if I just push or I just get emotional or I just do whatever thing I do on repeat, she's going to give in, and you've decided, no, I'm going to put this boundary up and I'm only going to do A and B and I'm not going to do C for a while. Why would you keep giving your energy to change their thought? They don't want to change their thought. They're perfectly happy with their thought. One of the most important things for me to learn is some people no longer think I'm nice. And that's okay, because sometimes when I was being nice, I wasn't being truthful. I wasn't being truthful to myself. And so I'd rather be honest. I'd rather be authentic than have people think I'm nice.
Yep, I 100% agree. I think there's a difference of nice and being kind and being thoughtful. I mean, like, there's so many different adjectives, right, that we can put in there. But when you can be nice to yourself,
Yeah.
then that just changes
And
everything.
be authentic and be truthful.
Yeah,
And I'm not unkind. I actually only send out love, right? I only want the best for you, but I want the best for me first because I lived so much of my life so past my limits. I was physically sick. I was mentally exhausted. I was giving my favorite people my worst energy, taking care of other people, right? So my husband and my children were getting the depleted version of me so that other people got really more energy than I wanted to give there. If I ever sat down and made a budget for my energy, I wouldn't say this person that I probably won't even know in 20 years should get 80% of my energy, and my sweet children should get just the remnants. That wouldn't have been a decision I made on purpose.
yeah. I recently came to that realization myself. I'm like, I think back to managers I've had in the past where I would do work on weekends because I didn't want them to think that I wasn't like, I don't even know back then what
Right.
I was thinking, right? Thankfully, I can't remember. But I look back and I'm like, they're not even here. Like, really, what difference does it make if we stop and think about like the people that we are exactly what you're saying, giving that energy to? Will they be around in our life? At what point does it all change? And
No, and especially in the workforce where you see company after company that you give so much to, and they just pivot on a dime. They're like, we're just going to let this part of our company go. You definitely look back a few years later and say, oh my goodness, that's not a trade I would have made on repeat, right? And a lot of the things, I think people who are probably listening to your podcast, people who are doing the self-development work, we actually are kind people who want to make the world better, right? We are passionate. I think one of the hard things is to narrow. And even though there are thousands of things in the world that need time and energy and your resources, could you focus on just one? And instead of helping the school and the town and the country and overseas, like, can you pick one of those and really give some energy to as you're healing, as you're getting back to that emotionally, mentally, physically healthy place, instead of constantly, like, I think one of the things many of us need to do is stop letting so much information come in. We shouldn't know about that person 3 states over, right? 100 years ago, we wouldn't have known about that. So if someone's listening and they're feeling overwhelmed, it could be they've said too many yeses, and it's okay to say some no's as you're growing, in your ability to set boundaries or in your self-awareness journey or in just your own path back to healthy, right?
yeah.
I don't know how I did a lot of work from unhealthy places, and I don't think it was best for me, which is first. And then I don't think it was best for everybody either, for me to constantly be that, spread so thin.
Yeah, I agree. And as we're kind of coming to a close, I think this could be a whole nother conversation with a podcast. And you mentioned it early on. And I think it's a lot of the work I've done is the whole idea of codependency and like why it is that we're doing all of these things that we're
Well, I have a very simple answer to that. So what
right.
happens when we're little kids is we say or do something and we think what we said or did, right? We're very little. cause the response in the person. They cried, they laughed, whatever it is. And so we try to repeat that. And so codependency happens, especially for those of us who feel other people's feelings, empathetic people. Someone comes in and you're feeling their feelings and it's so uncomfortable, you're willing to do something to change their feelings. And so if you're somebody who's noticing, I think I'm like that, I think I connect to other people's feelings and I try to help them change their feelings, even just a little bit of this podcast might help you. Their thoughts are creating their feeling. It's never your actions. And so codependency ends when we really allow adults to be responsible for their own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and we stay in our box. What do I want to think? How will that make me feel? And will that move me towards the result that I want with the small action steps? And so that's really the path out of codependency, is to let them, right? I love Mel Robbins. Let them
Mel Robbins, that's right.
anything, but let me concentrate on those three things. What do I want to think? How will it make me feel? And what will help me do or not do?
Yeah, I love her book. I think it really opened up for a lot of people the idea of what codependency is and allowing themselves to let go of some of that control. Like,
Yeah.
I like to say I'm a control enthusiast. I really tried. This has been so much fun. Have we missed anything today?
No, I
Is
think
there
we covered
one
everything.
takeaway that you
Yeah.
would like, if people are kind of closing down, and one takeaway that you think is like most important? I always am such a big advocate for like small changes over time. So if someone's gonna make
Yes.
one change today, what do you think?
I would gift yourself with what Julia Cameron calls in The Artist Way, an artist date. Find a time over the next 7 days where you say, I'm going to carve out 30 minutes for me. And I'm going to take a journal or my notes app or whatever it is. Maybe it's a conversation with a friend, because some of us only process when we're verbally talking. So if you do best with your journal or you do best with a friend, but what if you committed 30 minutes sometime in the next 7 days to either noticing what you're thinking on repeat? The whole world is depending on me and I'm exhausted. Notice what you're feeling. I'm overwhelmed. I'm resentful. I'm getting really kind of frustrated every time I have this conversation with somebody. Or notice the actions you do want to take. I want to do more of this because it gives me life, and I'll have to say no to this to find the time and the space and the energy. But gift yourself 30 minutes sometime in the next 7 days and commit to it. Write it down in your calendar. Tell somebody you're going to do it. And from that place, see if you can make the smallest decision. So if I could go back in a time machine to really exhausted me, I would say, gift yourself, Kelly, 30 minutes to work out. We started our conversation around this. When I found my 9-round gym, my first trainer said to me, Kelly, you're worth 30 minutes. That thought had to grow, but that's where my strength and my health and so much goodness came from, right? Was I was worth 30 minutes. Find that thought, find that feeling, that connected, enthusiastic, determined feeling, or find a small action step and decide you're worth it.
So good. Thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Sure. My website is kellytibbetts.com. And then I have a podcast called Live a Vibrant Life, where I share tools on the Enneagram, Human Design, some of the thought work from Life Coach School. Both of those are great places to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, wasn't that great? So many nuggets of wisdom, and I especially love the human design information. You can get started with some of the basic information around human design if you just go to jovianarchive.com. I will have that in the show notes. It's free. It's how I started. And listen, with all of the AI out there these days, once you find your design, so you do need to know your time of birth and your location, but you can go down a freaking rabbit hole of information to find out details once you get your actual design. And I would love to know what your design is. Send me a DM and we can even chat about it. It's so much fun. Again, I'm a 6-2 generator. It says a lot about me. And I truly mean it when I say human design will give you permission to step into being yourself. Now, as with all of our episodes, I hope this conversation leaves you feeling seen, energized for sure, and ready to take small and or maybe bold steps towards what you want most in life today. So, as a reminder, you can connect with Kelly at kellytibbetts.com. And friends, that's what I have for you today. Let's meet back here next week. But for now, make it a great day. Take care. Did you know you can take this work to a deeper level with me one-on-one? Go to michelleburkecoaching.com and click on Get Started to begin.